The morning alarm echoed through Fort Armstrong at exactly 0600 hours, just like every other day for the past 15 years. Colonel Jake Morrison rolled out of bed and pulled on his uniform, the same routine he had followed since taking command of this remote military base in the Colorado mountains. Outside his window, snow covered the peaks that surrounded their facility, keeping them hidden from the world below. Fort Armstrong was not like other military bases. While most bases trained soldiers or stored weapons, this place was different. It housed the military's most secret research projects. Scientists and soldiers worked together here, studying things that the public would never know about. Morrison walked through the quiet halls toward the command center. The base was home to 300 people, all carefully chosen for their ability to keep secrets. Dr. Lisa Park met him at the entrance to the research wing. She looked worried, which was unusual for the calm scientist. "Colonel, we need to talk," she said, holding a tablet in her hands. "The night patrol found something in Sector 7, something that crashed." Morrison followed her down the hall. Through the windows, he could see soldiers moving around a large object covered by green tarps. Whatever it was big enough to require 6 men to lift it. "When did this happen?" Morrison asked. "Around 0300 hours. Sergeant Chris Baker was doing his regular patrol when he saw lights in the sky. He thought it might be a meteor, but then he heard the impact. When he went to check, he found this." They entered the main research lab. The object sat on a metal table in the center of the room. Dr. Park pulled back the tarp, and Morrison felt his breath catch in his throat. It was clearly not from Earth. The metal was unlike anything he had ever seen, smooth and silver with patterns that seemed to move. When he looked at them, the shape was wrong too, curved in ways that human engineering could not achieve. "It's some kind of escape pod," Dr. Park explained. "The metal is incredibly strong, but we managed to get it open about an hour ago." She led him to the other side of the table. Inside the pod, lying on what looked like a bed of soft material, was a small figure. Morrison leaned closer and realized it was a child, but not a human child. The creature was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old, by human standards. Its skin was pale silver, almost like metal, but soft to the touch. Large violet eyes stared up at them, filled with fear and confusion. The child had thin arms and legs and hair that was white as snow. "Is it alive?" Morrison asked quietly. "She is alive," Dr. Park corrected. "And she is very sick. Whatever happened to her ship, she has been hurt badly. Her body temperature is too low, and she is not getting enough of whatever she breathes." Morrison studied the alien child. She looked so small and helpless lying there. Her eyes followed his movements, clearly intelligent but unable to speak. "What do we do with her?" he asked. Dr. Park checked her readings again. "Protocol says we should contact headquarters immediately. They will want to move her to a bigger facility for study." Morrison knew what that meant. The child would become a test subject, poked and examined by scientists who saw her as a thing rather than a living being. He had seen enough reports to know how the government treated alien artifacts. "How long does she have?" he asked. "Without proper care? Maybe a few hours. With the right help, she could recover completely. Her species seems very adaptable." Morrison made a decision that would change everything. "Fix her up, Doc. Make her well." "Colonel, I have to report this. The regulations are clear. The regulations can wait 24 hours. Right now, we have a sick child who needs help. Everything else comes after that." Dr. Park looked uncertain, but she nodded. Morrison was her commanding officer, and she trusted his judgment. She had worked with him for 5 years and knew he always did what he thought was right. The next few hours were the longest of Morrison's life. Dr. Park worked steadily, using equipment meant for human patients to help an alien child. Sergeant Baker and medic Amy Torres assisted, both sworn to secrecy about what they had found. Slowly, the child's condition improved. Her skin became less pale, and her breathing grew stronger. By evening, she was sitting up in the medical bed, looking around with curious eyes. "She is remarkable," Dr. Park told Morrison. "Her body adapts to new conditions faster than anything I have ever seen. She is already learning to breathe our air and process our food." The child watched them talk, her violet eyes moving from person to person. When Morrison approached the bed, she did not back away. Instead, she reached out with one small hand and touched his uniform sleeve. "Hello there," Morrison said gently. "Can you understand me?" The child tilted her head and made soft sounds that might have been words in her language. Then, to everyone's surprise, she tried to copy his words. "Hello," she said slowly, her voice musical and strange. Dr. Park nearly dropped her clipboard. "She is learning our language just by listening to us. Colonel, this is incredible." Over the next few days, the child learned more words. She was curious about everything, pointing at objects and listening when the humans told her their names. Morrison found himself spending more and more time in the medical wing, fascinated by how quickly she learned. "What should we call her?" Amy Torres asked one morning. "She needs a name." Morrison looked at the child, who was now walking around the room on unsteady legs. She had been watching the soldiers through the window, copying their movements when she thought no one was looking. "Luna," he said finally. "We will call her Luna." How the child looked up when she heard the name, as if she understood it was meant for her. She pointed to herself and said carefully, "Luna." Dr. Park pulled Morrison aside later that day. "Colonel Headquarters is going to want answers soon. We cannot keep this secret forever." Morrison had been thinking about the same thing. He knew that once the government learned about Luna, she would be taken away. Scientists would study her, and military officials would try to learn her technology. She would become a prisoner, even if they called her something else. What if they do not? "Find out?" he asked. "Sir? What if the crash site was just a meteor? What if there was nothing to report?" Dr. Park stared at him. "You want to hide her, Colonel? She is an alien being. This could be the most important discovery in human history." "She is a child," Morrison said firmly, "a scared, lost child who needs help. Everything else can wait." He looked through the window at Luna, who was now trying to tie her shoes the way she had seen Amy Torres do it. She was so focused on the task, her little tongue sticking out in concentration. "Besides," Morrison added, "think about what she could teach us if she grows up here. She learns from us. Maybe we can learn from her too." Dr. Park was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "If we do this, we all take the risk together. Baker, Torres, you, and me. If anyone finds out, we could all face court-martial." "I know," Morrison said, "but look at her. She belongs here now." That night, Morrison filed his report about the meteor that had crashed in Sector 7. He wrote that the search team had found only scattered metal fragments, nothing of value. He deleted all references to the escape pod and the alien child. Luna fell asleep in the medical bed, clutching a small stuffed bear that Amy Torres had given her. She was safe, at least for now. Morrison did not know what the future would bring, but he knew he had made the right choice. Outside the window, snow continued to fall on the Colorado mountains, keeping their secret hidden from the world below. 10 years had passed since the night Luna arrived at Fort Armstrong. The small alien child had grown into a young woman, though she still looked different from the humans around her. Her silver skin had darkened slightly over the years, and her violet eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. She moved with the grace of a dancer and the precision of a soldier. Luna woke every morning at 0530 hours, 30 minutes before the base alarm. She had learned this habit from watching Colonel Morrison, who still commanded Fort Armstrong after all these years. She dressed in her modified military uniform, specially made to fit her smaller frame, and headed to the training ground sergeant. Chris Baker was already there, setting up equipment for the morning exercises. He was older now, with gray hair at his temples, but he still moved like the soldier he had always been. Luna had been training with him since she was strong enough to hold a practice weapon. "Morning, Luna," Baker said as she approached. "Ready?" "For today's session?" "Always ready, Sergeant," Luna replied. Her voice had a musical quality that made even simple words sound beautiful. Over the years, she had learned to speak English perfectly, though she sometimes used phrases that sounded formal compared to how the soldiers talked. They began with physical training. Luna's alien body gave her advantages that amazed everyone. On the base, she could run faster than any human, jump higher, and her reflexes were incredibly quick. But what impressed the soldiers most was how she thought during combat exercises. Captain Kevin Walsh joined them on the training ground. He had taken over many of Luna's lessons 5 years ago, when it became clear that she needed more advanced instruction. Walsh was a tactical expert who had studied military history his entire career. "Today we're going to work on something new," Walsh said, pulling out a large map. "I want you to look at this battle scenario and tell me what you see." The map showed a valley with 2 opposing forces, marked in red and blue. Luna studied it for only a few seconds before pointing to several locations. "The blue force is trying to control the high ground here," she said, tracing a line with her finger. "But they have made an error. They have positioned their supply lines too close to this river. If the red force attacks here during the spring floods, they can cut off all supplies and force a retreat." Walsh nodded, impressed as always.
That's
"Exactly right. The KO took military historians 40 years to figure out why that battle was lost. You saw it in seconds." Luna tilted her head, a gesture she had picked up from watching human expressions. "The pattern is obvious once you understand how water moves and how armies need supplies. All battles follow similar patterns." This was what made Luna special. She could see patterns in military strategy that even experienced officers missed. Her alien mind worked differently from human thinking, allowing her to understand complex tactical situations as if they were simple puzzles. Major Helen Cruz arrived. As they finished the morning exercise, she was the base's intelligence officer and had been working with Luna on understanding larger military operations. Cruz had been suspicious of Luna at first, but over the years she had come to respect the young alien's abilities. "Luna, I have something interesting to show you," Cruz said, holding a thick file. "These are reports from recent conflicts around the world. I want you to read them and tell me what you think." They moved to the base library, a quiet room filled with military books and computer terminals. Luna read quickly, her violet eyes moving across pages faster than most humans could follow. She absorbed information like a sponge, remembering every detail. "These conflicts all have something in common," Luna said after reading for an hour. "The winning side in each case used tactics that their enemy did not expect. They broke from traditional military thinking." "Can you give me an example?" Cruz asked. Luna pointed to a report about a recent battle in Africa. The smaller force should have been defeated easily, but they attacked at night during a sandstorm, when the larger force thought no one would move. They won because they did something that military doctrine says is impossible." Cruz made notes as Luna talked. The alien's insights were always valuable, and Cruz had started sharing them with other intelligence officers around the world. Of course, she never mentioned where the ideas came from. In the afternoon, Luna worked with Dr. Lisa Park in the medical wing. Park was older now, with lines around her eyes, but she still moved with the same careful precision she had shown 10 years ago. She had become like a mother to Luna, teaching her about human biology and medicine. "Your cellular structure is still changing," Park told Luna as she reviewed test results. "Your body continues to adapt to Earth's environment. It's remarkable." Luna lay still on the examination table, used to these regular checkups. "Do you think my people are looking for me?" she asked quietly. It was a question she had been asking more often lately. As she grew older, Luna had begun to wonder about her origins. She remembered nothing from before the crash. But sometimes she had dreams about silver cities and purple skies. Park paused in her work. "I don't know, Luna, but if they are, they haven't found us yet." Luna nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. She had been monitoring radio signals from space, using the base's equipment, though she had not told anyone about this. So far, she had detected nothing unusual, but she kept listening. That evening, Luna joined the other soldiers in the recreation room. This was her favorite time of day, when the formal military structure relaxed and everyone could talk freely. She sat with Amy Torres, who was now a senior medic, and several younger soldiers who had arrived at the base in recent years. "Tell us about the war games again," asked Private Danny Clark, a young pilot who had joined the base 6 months ago. "The ones where you beat the entire strategy department." Luna smiled, remembering the incident from 2 years ago. The base had been visited by a team of military strategists from headquarters. They had set up a complex wargame simulation and challenged anyone on the base to play against their computer program. I simply looked at their strategy and found the weakness, Luna said. They were thinking like a computer, following rules and patterns, but war is not always logical. Sometimes you must do things that make no sense. But how did you know what to do? Clark asked. Luna considered the question. I watched how you humans fight. You do not always follow the rules. You improvise. You adapt. You try things that should not work. It's your strength. The soldiers around her nodded, though most of them did not fully understand what she meant. To them, Luna was simply the smartest person on the base, someone who could solve any tactical problem. They did not realize that she was learning from them as much as they were learning from her. Late that night, Luna stood alone on the base's observation deck, looking up at the stars. The Colorado sky was clear, and she could see thousands of points of light scattered across the darkness. Somewhere among those stars was her home world, though she no longer thought of it that way. Fort Armstrong was her home now. These humans were her family. Colonel Morrison had given her a chance to belong somewhere, and she had grown up surrounded by people who cared about her. She understood human military thinking better than most humans did, but she also understood something else. She was changing them just as they had changed her. The soldiers at Fort Armstrong thought differently now, more creatively and flexibly, because they had spent years around someone who saw patterns they missed. They were becoming better fighters without even realizing it. Luna pulled her jacket tighter against the cold mountain air. Tomorrow would bring more training, more learning, more growth. She was ready for whatever came next, confident in the knowledge that she belonged exactly where she was. Above her, the stars continued their ancient dance across the sky, keeping their secrets hidden in the vast darkness of space. The alarm that woke Fort Armstrong on that Tuesday morning was different from the usual wake-up call. It was the emergency alert, loud and urgent, echoing through every hallway and room on the base. Luna sat up in her bed immediately, her enhanced hearing picking up sounds that human ears would miss. In the distance, she could hear vehicles moving and people shouting orders. Colonel Morrison's voice came over the base communication system minutes later. His tone was calm but serious, the voice of a man who had dealt with crises before. All personnel report to the main briefing room immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Luna dressed quickly in her uniform and ran through the halls alongside the other soldiers. The briefing room was packed with everyone from the base, from senior officers to junior enlisted personnel. The large screen at the front of the room showed an image that made Luna's heart stop. Ships. Dozens of them, floating in space just beyond Earth's moon. They were sleek and silver, with the same curved design as the escape pod that had brought Luna to Earth 20 years ago. She knew immediately what they were, even though she had never seen them before. These were ships from her homeworld. General Patricia Stone appeared on the screen via video link from the Pentagon. Her face was grim and her uniform was perfectly pressed despite the early hour. Luna had never seen this woman before, but she could tell from the way everyone stood straighter that she was very important. At 0400 hours this morning, these vessels appeared in our solar system, Stone said. They made no attempt to hide their arrival. Long-range sensors show at least 40 ships with more arriving every hour. Dr. Park, who was sitting near Luna, reached over and squeezed her hand. Luna appreciated the gesture, but her mind was racing too fast to feel comfort. She was studying the ships on the screen, noting their formation and positioning. They were arranged in a perfect attack pattern, just like the ones she had read about in military history books. 30 minutes ago, we received this transmission, Stone continued. The screen changed to show a tall figure in elaborate military dress. Luna's breath caught in her throat. The being looked like her, but older and more imposing. His silver skin was marked with scars, and his violet eyes were cold and calculating. When he spoke, his voice was deep and commanding. People of Earth, I am Admiral Vex Corian of the Zephyrin Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our domain. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Weapons. Disband your military forces and prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. The transmission ended, leaving the briefing room in shocked silence. Luna felt hundreds of eyes turning toward her. After 20 years of keeping her presence secret, everyone now knew that she was connected to this threat. Colonel Morrison stepped forward. Luna, do you know anything about these ... Zephyrians? Luna stood up slowly, and her legs felt unsteady, but her voice was clear when she spoke. Yes, sir. They are my people.
Oh.
The ship that brought me here was a Zephyrian scout vessel.
Oh.
Room erupted in whispers and concerned voices. Some soldiers looked frightened, others angry. Luna could see suspicion in faces that had shown her only kindness for years. Morrison raised his hand for silence. Continue, Luna. The Zephyrians are conquerors, Luna said, her voice growing stronger. They have taken control of dozens of worlds across the galaxy. They win through superior military strategy and overwhelming force. No species has ever successfully resisted them. Major Cruz leaned forward in her chair. What do they want with Earth? Resources, territory, and slaves. Luna answered honestly. They will keep some humans alive to work for them, but most will be eliminated. They do not believe other species deserve to exist as equals. The room fell silent again. Finally, General Stone spoke from the screen. Luna, you've been living among humans for 20 years? Can you help us understand how to fight them? Luna looked around the room at the people who had raised her. She saw fear in their faces, but also determination. These humans had shown her kindness when they could have treated her as an enemy. They had given her a home, a family, and a purpose. Now they needed her help. Yes, General, Luna said firmly. I can help you fight them. But you must understand something important. The Zephyrians always win because they follow a perfect military strategy. Every battle they fight follows the same patterns that have worked for thousands of years. She walked to the front of the room and pointed at the screen showing the alien fleet. Look at their formation. It is exactly what their military doctrine requires for planetary invasion. First, they establish orbital control. Then they target major population centers to force quick surrender. If that fails, they begin systematic destruction until resistance collapses. Captain Walsh stood up from his seat. So how do we fight perfect strategy? Luna smiled for the first time since the alarm had sounded. We use imperfect strategy. We do things that make no military sense. We break every rule they expect us to follow. She turned to face General Stone on the screen. General, I have spent 20 years studying human military history. Humans win battles they should lose because you do not think like other species. You improvise. You adapt. You try impossible things. The Zephyrians have never faced an enemy like that. Stone leaned forward. What do you need from us? Complete authority to coordinate Earth's defense, Luna said. And trust. Some of my suggestions will seem crazy, but they will work precisely because they are crazy. Morrison stepped up beside Luna. General, I have worked with Luna for 20 years. If she says she can help us win, I believe her. Stone was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. Very well. Luna, you now have the authority to coordinate with all military branches worldwide. What are your orders? Luna felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The lives of 8 billion humans now depended on her ability to think like both a Zephyrian and a human at the same time. First, we evacuate all major cities, she said, but not to the places they expect. We move populations to areas that make no tactical sense to hold. Second, we prepare our military forces, but we train them to fight in ways that violate every principle of warfare. She pointed to different areas on the world map displayed on the screen. We will make our stand in locations that should be impossible to defend. We will attack when we should retreat when we should attack, and use weapons in ways they were never designed for. Dr. Park raised her hand. Luna, will this actually work? Luna looked at the woman who had been like a mother to her. Dr. Park, the Zephyrians have conquered 47 worlds. Every single one of those worlds fought them using logical military strategy. Every single one lost because they did what the Zephyrians expected them to do. She turned back to the room full of soldiers who had become her family. But humans do not always do what is expected. You have won impossible battles throughout your history by refusing to accept that something cannot be done. That is why you will win this war too. The briefing room buzzed with activity as officers began receiving their orders. Luna stood at the front, coordinating with military leaders around the world through video links. In 72 hours, Earth would either be free or enslaved. But for the first time since the alien ships had appeared, Luna felt hope. The Zephyrians were about to learn what happened when perfect strategy met perfectly imperfect opponents. The 72 hours had passed. Admiral Vex Corian stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching Earth through the massive viewing screens. No surrender message had come from the planet below. The humans had chosen resistance, just as 47 other species had chosen before them. They would all learn the same lesson. Begin the invasion, Corian commanded. His voice echoed through the bridge as his officers prepared to execute the strategy that had never failed. Target the major population centers first. Destroy their military installations. Show them the price of defiance. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation with perfect precision. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. It was a beautiful thing to watch. It's like a deadly dance performed by masters of their craft. On Earth, Luna stood in the command center that had been hastily built beneath Fort Armstrong. Banks of computers and communication equipment filled the underground room. Officers from every branch of the military waited for her orders. She wore a modified general's uniform now, the stars on her collar reflecting the lights from the screens around her. "They are beginning their attack," reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell from his position at the Naval Coordination Station. "Just as you predicted, Luna. They are targeting New York, London, Tokyo, and Moscow first." Luna nodded calmly. She had spent 3 days preparing for this moment, coordinating with military leaders around the world. Every piece was now in place for the most unusual battle in human history. "Activate Phase 1, she said into her headset. "All units remember. Your training is do exactly what we practiced, no matter how strange it seems." Around the world, human forces began to move in ways that made no sense to military observers. Instead of rushing to defend the major cities, most troops pulled back to positions that appeared tactically worthless. Mountain valleys, desert regions, and small islands suddenly became the focus of massive military buildups. The first Zephyrian assault ships entered Earth's atmosphere over New York City. They expected to find the city defended by human fighter jets and ground-to-air missiles. Instead, they found something completely different. The city was almost empty. Most of the population had been evacuated 3 days earlier, moved to locations that served no strategic purpose. The few military units that remained were not defending the obvious targets. Instead, they were scattered throughout the city in small groups, hiding in buildings and subway tunnels. Captain Danny Clark led his fighter squadron in the first engagement with the alien ships. He had been given orders that seemed insane when he first heard them, but Luna had made him practice the maneuvers over and over until they felt natural. "Eagle Squadron, this is Eagle 1, Clark spoke into his radio. "Begin crazy pattern Alpha. Remember, we are not trying to win this fight. We are trying to confuse them." The human fighters attacked the Zephyrian ships in a formation that violated every rule of aerial combat. Instead of coordinated strikes, each pilot flew independently, making random turns and unpredictable movements. "Ow!" They fired their missiles at targets that made no tactical sense, sometimes shooting at empty space or friendly buildings. To human observers, it looked like chaos. To the Zephyrian ships, it was something their computers could not understand. The alien vessels had been programmed to counter every known form of aerial combat, but they had never encountered pilots who deliberately made wrong choices. The Zephyrian commander of the New York Assault Force, Captain Nextorian, watched his tactical displays with growing confusion. The human fighters were not following any recognizable attack pattern. His ships could not predict where they would go next, because the humans themselves seemed to be making it up as they went along. "Lock onto the lead fighter," Torian ordered. "Destroy it with precision fire." But every time his weapons systems locked onto a human ship, the pilot would suddenly change direction for no apparent reason. The Zephyrians found themselves shooting at empty sky, while the human fighters continued their chaotic dance around them. Meanwhile, Air Force Colonel Sandra Hayes coordinated the global air defense from her position in the command bunker. She was watching reports from battle zones around the world, all showing the same pattern. The Zephyrians are having trouble targeting our aircraft, she reported to Luna. Their computer systems cannot predict our movements when we do not follow standard tactics. Luna smiled as she watched the tactical displays. Everything was going exactly as she had planned. Excellent. Begin Phase 2? Ground forces? You know what to do. Around the world, human ground forces began the strangest military operation in history. Instead of digging in to defend important positions, they started moving toward the alien landing sites. But they did not march in straight lines or follow roads. Instead, they moved like water, flowing around obstacles and splitting into smaller groups that seemed to have no connection to each other. General Marcus Webb commanded the ground forces defending the American East Coast. He led his troops through the forests of Virginia, moving toward the Zephyrian landing zone near Washington, D.C. His soldiers carried weapons that had been modified in ways that made no sense to traditional military thinking. Remember, Webb told his company commanders over the radio, "We are not trying to destroy their ships. You're trying to make them think we are crazy. Use your weapons exactly as Luna taught you." The human soldiers began their attack on the Zephyrian ground forces just as the sun was setting. But instead of using their rifles and explosives in normal ways, they did exactly what Luna had trained them to do. Some soldiers fired their weapons into the air, creating noise and light but hitting nothing. Others used explosives to destroy empty buildings instead of alien vehicles. Tank crews drove their vehicles in circles around the enemy positions, firing randomly but never stopping to aim properly. The Zephyrian ground commander, Major Kexnarian, could not understand what he was seeing. His tactical computer kept giving him error messages because it could not classify the human attack patterns. According to all military logic, the human should be trying to destroy his forces and capture strategic positions. Instead, they seemed to be putting on some kind of performance. Request orbital support, Narian radioed to the fleet above. The human ground forces are acting in ways that do not match any known military doctrine. Admiral Corion received similar reports from all the battle zones on Earth. Every Zephyrian commander was reporting the same thing. The humans were fighting, but not in any way that made sense. His computer systems could not analyze their tactics because they appeared to have no tactics at all. But Luna knew the truth. Every seemingly random human action was part of a carefully planned strategy. While the Zephyrians focused on the chaotic attacks that made no sense, they were missing the real threat. Lieutenant Commander Bell coordinated the naval forces from his position in the command bunker, hidden beneath the ocean's surface. Human submarines were moving into position around the Zephyrian fleet. They used a new approach that Luna had designed, traveling in patterns that looked random but were actually carefully calculated. "All submarine commanders, this is Naval Command," Bell spoke into his radio. "Target the Zephyrian command ship. Use torpedo pattern Delta. Fire on my mark." The submarines attacked the Zephyrian flagship from 6 different directions at once. But they did not aim for the obvious weak points that any military computer would target. Instead, they fired at locations that Luna had identified through her knowledge of Zephyrian ship design. The torpedoes struck the Eternal Dominion in places that seemed unimportant but were actually critical to the ship's operation. Systems began failing throughout the massive vessel as human weapons found weaknesses that the Zephyrians had never thought to protect. Admiral Corion felt his ship shake under the unexpected assault. Emergency alarms echoed through the bridge as his officers scrambled to respond to damage they did not understand. "How did they know to target those locations?" Corion demanded. "Those systems are protected by our most advanced defenses." There was no answer to his question. Humans had somehow found flaws in Zephyrian technology that the aliens themselves did not know existed. As the battle continued into the night, Luna watched the reports flowing into her command center. The Zephyrian forces were becoming more confused and disorganized with each passing hour. Their perfect military strategy was failing because they could not understand an enemy that refused to follow any strategy at all. Phase 3 begins now. Luna announced to her staff. Time to show them what human creativity can really accomplish. Admiral Vex Corian stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, staring at the tactical displays with disbelief. In 40 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The human forces had been fighting for 18 hours, and his computer systems still could not predict their next move. Admiral reported as tactical officer, "We have lost contact with 7 assault ships. The human submarines continue to attack using patterns that our defense systems cannot counter." Corian clenched his fists. The Eternal Dominion was barely functional after the torpedo strikes that had targeted systems the humans should not have known about. Emergency power flickered throughout the bridge, and half of his communication arrays were offline. "How is this possible?" Corian demanded. "We are fighting primitive humans with inferior technology. Our strategy has conquered 47 worlds." What the Admiral did not understand was that Luna had spent 20 years learning to think like both a Zephyrian and a human. She knew exactly how his mind worked, how his computers thought, and how his fleet operated. But he knew nothing about her. In the command bunker beneath Fort Armstrong, Luna watched the battle displays with calm focus. The chaos above ground looked random, but every piece was moving according to her design. She had orchestrated the most complex military deception in human history, and it was working perfectly. Luna reported Colonel Sandra Hayes. "The Zephyrian fleet is pulling back from the major cities. They appear to be regrouping for a different type of attack." Luna nodded. This was exactly what she had expected. They are going to try a direct assault on what they think are our command centers. Admiral Corian is getting desperate, so he will abandon complex strategy and use brute force. She turned to the communication panel and opened channels to military leaders around the world. Prepare for Phase 4. The enemy is about to walk into our final trap. Captain Danny Clark was refueling his fighter jet at a hidden airfield in the Nevada desert when he received Luna's transmission. His squadron had been flying constant missions for 18 hours, using tactics that felt like controlled madness. Now they were being asked to do something even more impossible. "All pilots, this is command." Luna's voice came through his headset. "In 30 minutes, you will receive orders to attack the Zephyrian flagship directly. You will fly straight at their most heavily defended ship and fire everything you have." Clark almost laughed. It sounded like suicide. "Command, that ship has more firepower than our entire Air Force. We will not survive that attack." "Captain Clark," Luna replied, "trust me. You will not only survive, you will win. Follow the flight path I am sending to your computer exactly. Do not deviate from it by even 1 meter." Clark looked at the flight plan appearing on his screen, showed a route that led directly through the heaviest concentration of Zephyrian ships. Then a straight-line attack on the flagship. According to every military manual he had ever read, it was the worst possible approach. But Luna had not been wrong about anything yet. Meanwhile, General Marcus Webb was leading his ground forces through the mountains of Colorado, moving toward Fort Armstrong itself. Seemed backwards to every soldier under his command. They were retreating toward their own base, instead of advancing against the enemy. "General," asked Major Peters over the radio, "why are we falling back?" "The Zephyrians are following us exactly where Luna said they would, but we are leading them straight to our command center." Webb smiled as he checked his GPS coordinates. "Major Luna knows exactly what she is doing. The Zephyrians think they are chasing us to our most important base. They have no idea what is really waiting for them there." Admiral Corian had made his decision. Strange human tactics had confused his forces and cost him valuable ships, but he still had overwhelming superiority in firepower. He would end this war with a single devastating strike. "All ships, new orders," Corian announced. To his fleet, "We have identified the human command center in the Colorado mountains. All available forces will converge on that location and destroy it completely." The Zephyrian fleet moved into a tight formation and began descending toward Earth's surface. It was the largest concentration of alien firepower in the entire invasion, exactly what Luna had been waiting for. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Bell watched the alien ships approaching on his sonar displays. Hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, his submarine fleet had moved into position over the past 6 hours. They were carrying weapons that had never been tested in combat, modified according to Luna's specifications. "All submarines, this is Naval Command." Bell spoke into his radio. "The Zephyrian fleet is now in optimal position. Fire quantum torpedoes on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The modified torpedoes streaked through the water and then through space. Their guidance systems locked onto targets that Luna had selected, with mathematical precision, but these were not aimed at individual ships. Instead, they were designed to create a chain reaction that would disable the entire Zephyrian fleet at once. The first torpedo struck the command ship's main power core. Just as Captain Clark's fighter squadron began their impossible attack run, the explosion created an electromagnetic pulse that spread from ship to ship through the Zephyrian fleet's interconnected communication network. Clark watched in amazement as alien ships began losing power all around him. What it seemed like a suicide mission suddenly became a shooting gallery as the Zephyrian vessels drifted helplessly through space. "All fighters, this is Eagle 1, Clark announced. "Target the disabled ships." Luna was right. They cannot fight back on the ground. General Webb's forces turned around and began attacking the Zephyrian troops that had been chasing them. The alien soldiers found themselves surrounded in a valley with no escape routes, their air support gone, and their communication with the fleet cut off. Admiral Corian stared at his dark control panels in shock. His magnificent fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, had been defeated by humans using tactics that should not have worked. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the bridge as his officers struggled to restore basic systems. "How did they know?" Corian whispered. "How did they know exactly where to strike?" The answer came from an unexpected source. On his main screen, a transmission appeared showing a familiar figure. It was a Zephyrian, but one wearing a human military uniform. Admiral Corian recognized the face immediately, though he had not seen it for 20 years. "Admiral Corian," Luna said, her voice calm and professional. "I am General Luna of Earth's Defense Forces. You may remember me as the child from the scout ship that crashed on this planet 20 years ago." Corian's eyes widened in recognition. "Impossible. You were declared dead when your ship disappeared." "I was rescued by humans and raised as one of their own," Luna continued. "I learned their military thinking while retaining my knowledge of Zephyrian strategy." "You lost this war because you faced an enemy you could never understand." She gestured to something off-screen, and the image expanded to show the command bunker. Around her, human officers worked alongside alien technology, and Luna stood at the center of it all, clearly in command. "Your fleet is disabled but not destroyed," Luna said. "Your ground forces are surrounded but not eliminated. I am offering you the same choice you gave Earth: surrender or be destroyed." Corian looked around his powerless bridge. His officers stared at him, waiting for orders he could not give. The greatest military force in the galaxy had been defeated by a species they had considered primitive. "What are your terms?" Corian asked quietly. "Simple," Luna replied. "You will leave Earth immediately and never return. You will also carry a message to every world in the Zephyrian Empire. Tell them that humans do not conquer other species. We protect them." She paused, her violet eyes showing both determination and compassion. "Any world that wants freedom from Zephyrian rule can contact Earth. We will teach them what we have learned, that military strength comes not from following perfect strategy, but from the courage to try new things." 3 hours later, the Zephyrian fleet limped away from Earth's solar system. Their ships were functional enough for travel but would need months of repairs. Admiral Corian carried Luna's message with him, along with the knowledge that his empire's reign of conquest was coming to an end. Luna stood on the observation deck of Fort Armstrong, watching the alien ships disappear into the darkness of space. Colonel Morrison joined her, still amazed by everything that had happened. "Do you think they will be back?" Morrison asked. Luna smiled, the same expression she had worn as a child when solving difficult puzzles. "No, Colonel, they understand. Now that humans cannot be conquered because we refuse to be predictable, that lesson will spread throughout their empire." She looked up at the stars, thinking about the worlds that would soon be free. "Besides, I have a feeling we will be busy." helping other species learn to fight for their freedom. This war is over, but our real mission is just beginning. Morrison nodded, proud of the woman the little alien child had become. Luna had saved Earth by learning to think like a human while never forgetting her origins. She had become something new. A bridge between species, a teacher of tactics that valued creativity over conformity.